Okay, hi everybody. I'm working on an ATV today. I apologize if it's a little jittery. It's sitting on a tripod, and as I'm moving around my mouse, it looks like it's shaking the video a little bit. So, had a customer ask me for an ATV. I didn't have an ATV cutter. I typically try to make my own when I can. So I found, I went to Google and I did a vector image search. Vectors are scalable graphics, which are really nice to use, and there were a couple that I found. This one I particularly liked because it kind of gave me areas here that'll give me an idea on how I want to flood the cookie. As far as lines of separations, if it was all black, then I would kind of be left up to my own, but I did like this for that reason. So what I need to do in order to make a 3D printed cookie cutter is I need to trace this. I am using the Silhouette Studio Business Edition software, and I simply opened the file. It was a PNG file. It opens up JPEGs, SVGs, bitmaps, pretty much any kind of file. It usually opens it up without any trouble. So this is the original version here. Sorry about that. I've got a pretty large image here. This is going to be larger than my cookie cutter, and that's totally fine. I actually like to trace things larger. I think it gives me a better trace. Once it's traced, it'll be in the SVG format, which is your scalable vector graphic format, and then that means that you can scale it up or down without losing any of the details. So it's totally fine that it's way too big. As a matter of fact, it even tells me that it's 9.557 and I'm not making a 10-inch cookie. So I've got my two little traces here that I've actually already done, but we're going to go with this one here and start from scratch. So I've got this selected, and I'm going to come over to the trace button, and you'll see that it says open trace panel. Select the trace area, and you get a little bounding box that I'm going to select. And then once that's select, the area that's going to trace turns yellow. If you need to make any adjustments, you can go up or down on your threshold, which will clean it up or make it worse. So I'm just going to click trace, and then you can see I can move it away, and I've got my image here. So I'm just going to move this totally off screen and go back to this. Okay, so to make my cookie cutter, obviously I don't want this, and I also, as much as I like the little handlebars, that's not going to make a very good cookie cutter. What's going to happen is that's going to be a super small area, and we're not going to be able to get the dough out of it. So I am going to then do an offset, but first I want to get rid of all these little sections. Now I could go up and object release compound path and get rid of them that way, just by selecting them and deleting them out, or you can just kind of take the shortcut way where I did release the compound path, and you'll see there's bounding boxes around all these things. So I'm going to go to object modify and weld, and that just makes everything into one. So now that I have this nice one line situation, I need to get rid of this. So what I'm going to do for that is I'm going to create an offset. So I'm going to go over here to the offset panel. I'm going to choose offset, and usually 1.5 will do it. So I'm just going to look and see. I might need to go up a little higher. The area that I'm looking at getting rid of is this little tiny handle, and see how this comes into a real sharp edge. So I'm going to increase it yet even more, and that should be good enough. So now that I have that, I'm going to click apply. And again, I'm just going to release the compound paths, and then modify and weld, simply because I don't want that inside. So once I have this, I can go ahead and scale it to the size that I'm going to use. I actually already did one here just for time reasons. So I want this to be about 3.5 to 4 inches, which is about what this is. 1, 2, 2.5 tall, but it's 1, 2, 3, 4 inches wide. And then I took my initial little graphic here and just messed around with that until I got it to be about the same size as the cookie. It's not going to fit exact, but what I'm going to do is print this out later to give me as a template that I'll be able to use for how I'm going to flood the cookie. So now I need to make my different outlines for my 3D machine, so I'm going to copy this and paste it over to another file, and I'm going to zoom in here so that we can see it a little better. So I have a Dremel 3D machine with a 0.4 millimeter extruder. So when I make the offsets, I'm going to need to make that as 0.4 millimeters. One thing that I like to do at this point is to color my original a color, something light so that I can see it, simply because this is the one that I'm going to want to select. We're going to make internal and external offsets, and it's real simple. If you can select the one that's colored, then you know you've got the right one. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to put an external offset on it, and we're going to use these in multiples of 0.4. So again, I'm choosing my offset panel, and I've moved it down to 0.04. Oh, actually, hold on. My mistake. We need to go in and change our preferences to millimeters. It's by default set to inches, and it's really simple to do, and so we're just going to go in and change it. Okay, now let's try. Okay, so I've got a 0.04 offset, so I'm going to apply. So then I want to click again on this light blue, which is my original ATV, and I'm going to do an internal offset, same thing. Okay, so what this is the 0.04 from my original on both sides is going to create the cutting edge of my cookie cutter. So I want to go back and make sure that I'm selecting the original ATV, which is real simple to do because I'm clicking the color. And now I'm going to make another offset, and this time I'm going to do 0.8. I've found with my cookie cutters, I really like a thicker wall up the cutter. And then I'm going to go in and do the exact same thing, selecting this and do an internal offset of 0.8. To me, it just gives it a little extra durability. So I'm going to select this one more time, and this is actually going to make the outside lip of the cookie cutter. So I'm going to choose the offset here. And again, I'm doing multiples of 0.4. So I'm going to do this at a 1.2 and selecting the blue and 1.2. Okay, so the last thing that I'm going to do here is just change this back to transparent. And let me see if I can zoom in again. so that you guys can see the lines that I have here. I'm going to try to zoom one more time. So you can see here that the lines that we have, so we've got our initial cookie cutter, which is this middle line here. We've got the two edges that are going to make actually our cutting edge. We've got this edge and this edge, which is going to give us that little reinforcement. And then we've got this edge and this edge, which is going to give us the outside of the cookie cutter. So now that I have this in place, I'm going to file and save as. I'm going to save it as my desktop. I'm going to change it so that it saves it as an SVG. And I'm just going to name it. So I'll come back once I get the Fusion screen set up, where my camera has to be versus my computer monitor. It's really tricky to get that done, and I won't make you guys watch me figure that out. So that'll be video number 2. What I'm going to do this coming up is go into Fusion 360, which is a really nice CAD program, and we're going to actually extrude the cutter and generate the cut file for the 3D machine. So I'll catch you guys in a little bit.